Hey everybody, it's the Zig Zag Wanderer doing another episode of just walking and talking with a selfie stick in a park. And many of you may be wondering, what park am I in? Where am I? So I'll give you a guess. Well, I can actually just say it. It's in Wanta. It's the park next to the Jones Beach bike path. So today I figured I'll talk about a couple of things. I was looking, at. I noticed one thing though is like there was a lot of talk on the internet about are women funny, and I saw a lot of comments like on Twitter, and it's like such a divisive topic. People are all up in arms about it, like yes, no, yes, no. So my 2 cents about it is that it's too much of a blanket statement. We can't really have a blanket statement. Oh, women funny. It's like saying, "Are men funny?" It's just too much of a blanket statement. And the thing is, especially with stand-up comedy, the things that are often pushed into the mainstream are women who normally use vulgarity and curse a lot, and they get most of the exposure. So when you keep seeing women doing that, you're like, what's going on? Maybe women really aren't funny, when only that is being pushed into the mainstream, because we're not going to see msdivine in the mainstream now, are we? We're not going to see some of msdivine's sketch films in the mainstream. No, we're not going to see that. And I keep looking back because I left my food on the picnic table and I don't want them to throw it away. So you won't see msdivine in the mainstream media. But aside from msdivine and plugging my own show constantly without giving any proper updates, there are actually a lot of funny women, like even actresses. And maybe I'm going back in time, and it might seem kind of old in that sense. I do remember that show, Married with Joe, and a lot of the actresses on that show were pretty funny, like Peg Bundy. She was very funny. That next door neighbor, I think Marcia, her name is Amanda Bierce. She's very funny. She was quite funny. And actually, she directed a number of the episodes. She wrote and directed a number of Married with Children episodes. And that show was quite funny. So that's an example, but it was never, really pushed in the mainstream media, as like she's a comedian, but she did write the show, and it was interesting. That lady in Seinfeld, Elaine, she's quite funny. I actually liked her in the beginning of Seinfeld when her hair was more curly. Once she started straightening it, she just wasn't so funny. Maybe fame got to her head or something. She seemed more whiny. Some other actresses that I think are funny is I don't know if I got her name correct. I think her name is Madeline Kahn. She's from the 70s, and she used to act with I'm forgetting his name right now. Whatever his name, I'll remember. But she does this thing where she sings, So if you've seen, I think she was in Blazing Saddles. She was in a number of other movies, and she does this kind of like opera singing, which is pretty funny and interesting, because not many actresses include singing and comedy. So I thought that was a nice touch. I thought she did, it was a nice touch that she did. So I'd say she's funny. And there are actually actresses out there that are funny. I don't think you need to be, pushing someone's buttons just to be funny. Some people have their own unique take on things and their own opinions, and that's kind of funny. People have sometimes you have an imagination when you put it to work, and you come out with ideas, and you come out with films, you come out with stories. There used to be a writer, a children's author called Enid Blyton from I don't know if she was from the 50s, but she wrote a lot of children's books. I used to read them. And, so, adventure books, detective kind stories. And she also used to write a lot of like funny stories. So she can go into the category of, oh, she's also funny. So, I think it's too much of a blanket statement to say, oh, women funny. Or it doesn't really solve anything because it just makes people argue back and forth. You know, um, you know, even when you're doing things like comedy, a lot of it has to do with your ideas. You have an idea for something, you invent a character, you act it out, or you have someone play it, and it's art. So I don't know if you can really say women just aren't funny because they're biologically women. It doesn't, everyone's humor is a little different also. So you could say that comedy is in the eye of the beholder. But some women are funny, some women are not. So that is my 2 cents on that. So I can't, honestly, right now though, if I were to think of a stand-up comedian, I don't even like stand-up comedy or just a comedian that's funny. I never like these punchline jokes because, people after a while try to get like cheap shots. They get cheap shots. That's the whole thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna deliberately insult somebody in a malicious way and hopefully I'll get some laughs. So that's never fun, to maliciously do something just for laughs. Or sometimes you can be, very raunchy in the sense that you can say something controversial and it can be funny, but it's also about delivery because sometimes people tend to tweet their jokes. So something that you may say on stage comes off funny, if you, depending on your tone or, how dramatic, if you sing it in a certain dramatic way. But then if you're just stating it in a sentence, like for example, if you were to say something like all short people are stupid or something, I'm just making something up for the sake of argument, and then you tweet that, people will be like, what does that mean? That's not funny. That just sounds sort of mean. Look at these kids rolling down the hill. Let's see if we could see some of them. There they go. It's funny. Anyway, so that would be my 2 cents. Why should we really do blanket statements like that? I don't think so. But all I could say is that we should all check out Miss Divine's sketch comedy. Just rewatch the sketch films for now. What do you say? Okay, until later, until now, no, until I'm tired. I did intervals, after physically exerting myself and then trying to do a walk and talk. My brain has stopped working temporarily. All right, guys, so that's my 2 cents. Are women funny? Some are, some aren't. Later.